If you are sitting in this gym, you are the most important thing to Northmore High School. Do you believe that? And I'm going to say this, I'm not going to ask you if the person next to you is the most important person, because right now I'm focused only on you. And I want you to focus only on you. Because right now, you are the most important thing. And the reason why these people are here today is because of you. Not because of me. They're here because of you. Zone 32 is going to be a safe place for you. Zone 32 is going to be a safe place for you. And if you will bear with me, there's a few things that I want to read to you, and I want you to kind of picture in your mind what we've been talking about, because this is so relative in so many ways. I'm going to read you this is the kind of book I would like to read if I was in Mr. Winfrey's class. It's got 5 chapters to it. It's on 1 page. Listen to chapter 1. Listen to chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's now a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I choose another street to walk down. That's relative to everything we're talking about today. And you know what? You can't just walk down a different street immediately. It is a process. Like my good friend being clean for day 7. It's a daily process. It is a daily process. Let's talk about Josh Hamilton, because what you know more about Josh Hamilton is him swinging the bat, running down baseballs, just tattoos all over him. Let me talk to you a little bit about Josh Hamilton. And that's why this 32 is on these shirts that you see, and we're still trying to figure out, I don't know, what we're going to do with shirts, sell them and give the money for whatever, I don't know. That's not important right now. But there are a few things in this chapter 13 of Josh Hamilton's book that I think you need to hear. And I want you to think about what Josh Hamilton does right now and the image that Josh Hamilton has right now. And think about that young man standing next to that dumpster with no one. Because when Josh Hamilton was in high school, Josh Hamilton was the perfect, let me rephrase that. Josh Hamilton was the model student and the model son. He didn't want anything to get in the way of his baseball career. Josh Hamilton didn't even go to the junior-senior prom because he didn't think that was a good influence on him. But Josh Hamilton's life turned around. He was in a car accident, became hurt, began to use drugs, and to take away the pain, he began to get tattooed. I think he has, right now on his body, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 29 or 30 tattoos on his body. He would go and he would sit in the tattoo parlor's chair and sit, and the bigger the tattoo and the more pain, the better it was for Josh Hamilton. Yeah, that's the baseball player we're going to watch tonight, but he was also standing next to a dumpster at one time. You think about it. The people that he was being tattooed by invited him out one night, and there's where the casual becomes what? Thank you for whoever said it, but I'm going to say it one more time, okay? The casual turns into what? Turns into addiction. And that's what happened to Josh Hamilton. At 18 years old, they hand him $3.9 million. By the time he's standing next to the dumpster, he nearly has nothing. I think I could use my $3.9 million for a little bit something different than the life that he led. But you know what? He's human just like you and I are. Josh Hamilton had spent the night in a trailer house with his meth buddies. They really weren't his buddies because they were dealing meth and they were giving him meth or whatever. I'm not even sure he could afford it at that time. But he needed a place to stay, and he didn't want to stay in the trailer house with the meth folks. Didn't want to sleep outside. And this is what he says. Drugs had destroyed my body and my mind and my spirit. I could no longer experience happiness or surprise. I couldn't remember the last time I felt spontaneous joy. Why was I even alive? Number 1 draft pick out of high school, Tampa Bay Devil Rays, $3.9 million. He's asking now, why is he even alive? The only person that he counted on, or the only person that would open their door to him, was his grandmother. His parents had closed the door. His wife had closed the door. Basically, the only friends that he had were involved in drugs. So they really weren't friends because they didn't care about him. But his grandmother opened the door. She opened the door and said simply, Josh. She hid the shock she must have felt at the sight of me. There was food on my t-shirt. I was fidgety and sweaty. I couldn't stand still. My nose was congested, causing me to sniffle constantly. There was blood caked on the outside of my nostrils. I had a nasty cough. So tonight when you watch this center fielder for the Texas Rangers, picture him standing in front of his grandmother with food on his shirt. Blood caked on the outside of his nostrils. Number 1 draft pick, $3.9 million. Now where is he? He's standing in front of his grandmother, a crackhead, a dopehead, near death. But his grandmother took him in. And his grandmother didn't judge him. And his grandmother didn't holler at him. And his grandmother didn't. She supported him. She supported him, and she spent more time talking positive to him than anything else. But even though this is with his grandmother, right from the start, this became an unusual partnership. She was the last refuge, and I was the refugee. When every other door closed, hers remained open. She began filling my head with positive thoughts. She talked about our family and pointed out how the photos of me in my Hamilton machine baseball uniform, curly blonde hair elsewhere. She talked about getting healthy, and yes, she continued to talk about baseball. So Josh and his grandmother began to bond, but still, he did crack in her house. She did not kick him out. She still encouraged, she still wanted him to be successful, she still talked about baseball. I had given so much, and yet I found my life reduced to this: a series of cheap highs in a borrowed room in my grandmother's house. Number 1 draft pick, $3.9 million, blood coming out, blood caked on his nostrils, door shut, wife won't open the door, mom and dad won't open the door, no friends, standing next to a dumpster. Is that the kind of life that you want? Is that the kind of life that you want? Finally, one day, and in that room I made a decision. I made a decision to surrender. My problems were too big for me, and I concluded I could no longer kid myself into believing I could solve them myself. I could no longer fool myself into believing I could get around to straightening up after just one more high. I could no longer fight alone. This time, I began to pray. I dropped my 180-pound body to its knees and asked for help. Tears filled my eyes as I pleaded for mercy. I knew God wasn't going to come down and smooth out the world for me, but I knew I needed Him, and if I was to have any chance of getting through this, He is the one I needed. He recognized that he could not tackle this alone. He finally recognized that he could not tackle it alone. And there was one verse that he ran across that my daughter has on the back of her shirt that she made. James 4:7. Josh Hamilton says this, he says this to himself constantly. Humble yourself before God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Humble yourself before God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. People that I talk to, students that I talk to, the students that have been in my office over the last couple of weeks talking about issues that they deal with, I ask them, what do you have to grab a hold of when you're offered drugs? Once again, I need you to pay attention. Thank you. What do you have to grab a hold of? Josh Hamilton had 2 things that he grabbed a hold of, and now you see where he's at. First of all, he grabbed a hold of who? Your grandma. He grabbed a hold of his grandmother, and then he found God in his life. Look where he is today. He still struggles, but he still quotes that verse to himself constantly. Constantly quotes that verse to himself. To have the strength and to have the guidance to say no. What I'm asking you today is to find that something. Find that something that you can grab a hold of and say, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what's right, and I'm going to do it. But you know what? You can't do it alone. If you're struggling with it, you can't do it alone. And that's where you rely on whatever you believe in.